ん。あいや。そうじゃ。あいや。
Shenmue III came out a few days ago. It was one of the most expected sequels to a video game in video game history. Is the dream alive, or was it too much hype? Stick with this review to find out.
お前らがジョさんの家を襲ったゴロつきか。何者だお前。
Shenmue 1 came out for the Sega Dreamcast in 1999 and the sequel followed in 2001. Unfortunately, both games didn't sell well commercially, and it's not because they were bad games, but rather a lack of marketing from Sega and the ultimate demise of Sega as a console maker. And Shenmue 2 ended with a heavy cliffhanger, but we never got a sequel up until now. Sony stepped up, partially financed the game, and it was also financed through Kickstarter, one of the most successful Kickstarter campaigns, if I might add. Both Shenmue 1 and 2 had a massive cult following, so it's not surprising the big hype train for this game. But this train was a bit of a train wreck. Let's start with the story. I'll try not to spoil the game too much for you, but if you haven't played the first two games, please skip ahead a little bit. So you play as Ryo Hazuki, a Japanese boy who lived in a Japanese village with his martial arts father. One day, a bad guy called Lan Di shows up and murders your father. And there the story begins in Shenmue 1. You're on a mission to avenge your father's death and you're searching for Lan Di. You also discover throughout your journey that Lan Di murdered your father over some phoenix mirrors, and you happen to be in a possession of one. It's a long journey through villages and towns, but in Shenmue 2 you end up in a Chinese village cave with a mysterious girl called Shenhua. And the story in Shenmue 3 starts right there in the cave where the predecessor ended. You live with Shenhua and you visit this village called the Bailu village. You also come across Chi Yu men, who are also on a quest for the Phoenix Mirrors. You meet a lot of people in this village, and eventually the game changes the location and you travel with Shenhua to Niao. It's a stark contrast to the first location in the game. This is a bustling city compared to the Bailu village. What do you actually do in Shenmue 3? Well, like I said, you're on a quest to avenge your father. Shenmue is a very slow-paced game. You talk to different people, gather information, and so on. And occasionally you get into a fight. You get up every morning at 7 a.m. and you're free to do main story stuff or pursue other activities. You have to pay for your hotel room when in the city every night, resulting you having to make money. You can do that by doing odd jobs, collecting herbs, driving a forklift, or chopping wood. It's an interesting gameplay loop, but it's very slow-paced. You will spend most of your time in Shenmue 3 talking to people and gathering clues on where to go next. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the English voice acting is just so bad that I suggest that you turn on subtitles and go for the Japanese voiceover. It's much, much better to play it like this. The problem with talking to people stems from not being able to skip dialogue. It's the same shit all over again with most NPCs. I would have preferred the Yakuza style of dialogue, where the less important dialogue just gets a box text and you're free to speed it up. In Shenmue 3, it's rather tedious talking to every person you meet because the dialogue is mostly the same for most NPCs. Shenmue 3 also has combat. But for a game that has a hard-on on martial arts, there's actually little combat throughout your journey, especially in the first half of the game, the village. Adding a bit more combat wouldn't hurt the pacing. Combat is okay, but feels worse than in previous games. It feels button-mashy. You even have to level up your moves. You do that by practicing your moves in sparring in dojos and training halls. You have to purchase skill books and then practice those moves in sparring mode in order to raise your attack power. You can also raise your endurance and overall kung fu. You do that via some minigames like horse stance, rooster step, and 1-inch punch. All are very easy minigames, but very tedious and time consuming. Shenmue III is a game that wants you to experience the tedium of real life and the hardships that come with it. But the problem with that is that I already have a life and a job and the grind that comes with it. I don't want to relive it when I come home from work. Combat is fine and you can map your mastered moves to the right trigger. So you don't even have to pull off the moves, you just press a button and the game does that for you. That's why I said the previous entries in the series had better combat. In Shenmue III, the combat feels too easy. I've played it on the normal difficulty and it's very easy. Shenmue III feels like it's stuck in the early 2000s. Its gameplay loop is almost unchanged from the previous games. Complete disregard for the advancements made since Shenmue II came out. And that ain't cool. I like how Shenmue doesn't care for modern video game trends, but some things could have used a bit of streamlining. Also, I don't like how stamina and health are the same thing. Your health depletes while running around and doing things, and you have to constantly eat garlic and other fruits to replenish it. And it drains quite fast. Why even bother putting this mechanic in the game where you fill up your health just by scrolling down the menu and pressing a button to eat garlic? They could have made some restaurants in the game and some animations of you eating in them. I'd be fine with this because eating out is a big part of the Chinese culture. Scrolling through a menu and pressing a button to consume garlic is pure nonsense. Also, the characters look weird. Models are a bit cartoony looking, which is strange because the game doesn't have this style. Sometimes it feels like a mix of different art directions. This is not a AAA game, despite what you might think. It's a AA game. It uses the Unreal Engine 4, which is a mighty powerful engine, but it has many technical glitches. I love the art style, especially in the village sections. From sunflowers to pumpkin patches, it's very gorgeous looking. Its art is good, but the technical side is not. Characters popping right in front of you, no physics of any sorts, weird camera cuts, inconsistent lighting, and plenty more. It feels like a missed opportunity. Unreal Engine 4 is a mighty engine when used properly, but here it's not used to its full extent. The capsule machines are back and there's plenty of different side activities to do. Collecting herbs, collecting capsule sets, having a job or gambling at different gambling parlors. Lucky Hit is back, but there are some nice newcomer games like Turtle Racing, which is very fun. I found the best way to earn money is by visiting a fortune teller, finding out your lucky color and then using that color to your advantage in a minigame called Flower, Bird, Wind and Moon. It's more fun than chopping wood or even driving a forklift, and much more lucrative. I think Shenmue 3 will put off many gamers, and especially if they didn't play the two past games, there's a nice recap in the menu to get you up to speed. But even so, mechanics in this game are a bit outdated. I think Shenmue 3 will be for the hardcore fans. I consider myself a Shenmue fan, but even I have some gripes with the game. Back in Shenmue 1 days, this game was cutting edge in terms of graphics, so even if the game felt a little tedious sometimes, you went along with it because it was so pretty to look at. And that's not the case with Shenmue 3. It's not cutting edge, and its tediousness gets harder to swallow and forgive. And you want to know the worst part? People have been waiting for the conclusion of the story for many, many years. Now that Shenmue 3 is a reality, it doesn't even finish the story. Instead, like in Shenmue 2, the story left you hanging with the letters, "The story goes on." It feels like a slap in the face, if I'm being honest. Also, Shenmue 3 suffers from some horrible stutters on the PC. I have a Ryzen 7 3700X and a Vega 64, so this should be a piece of cake to run on Ultra 60 FPS. And it is, but there's heavy stuttering and hitching present in the games, sometimes. It's nothing game-breaking, but for a game that wants you to be immersed as much as possible, it breaks the immersion when these stutters occur. Also, the second part of the game, you arrive in the city and the first thing you'll see is this. Just look at the water. You see what I'm talking about. You arrive by night and this is the first thing you'll see. You'll see this weird lighting glitch on the water. Instant immersion breaker. Shenmue III isn't a game for everybody. Its core gameplay loop is very outdated and its tech very glitchy. The story is great, I admit that, but again, we're left with no conclusion. And who the hell knows if this game is ever gonna get a sequel? Because I don't see this selling large volumes, to be honest. It's not that the gameplay isn't enjoyable, it is. It definitely has its moments when it's pure magic of Shenmue. But those moments are ruined by tediousness of the game's mechanics and systems. Also, apparently, there's gonna be a DLC for this game. This also feels like a slap in the face. Shenmue isn't the game that should have DLC content. Shenmue 3 is a game that will appeal to its fans, but for newcomers, this is likely gonna be a hard pill to swallow. If I had to give a score to this game, I'd give it 7.1 out of 10.